Hello everyone, Morgura here again. Today we are going to be talking about some more space facts, just because I haven't been able to talk about any space facts for a while, and I really enjoy learning new things about outer space and how crazy it is, and how the rules that are on our planet just don't even seem to follow in there, even though we're all part of the same thing. Like, space is all around us and we are a part of space, and yet the rules sometimes are completely different, and I find that really fascinating. So let's start off with this. Did you know that there are actually clouds of water in space, and not ice water, water vapor? There is actually a massive water vapor cloud that holds 140 trillion times the amount of water in all of Earth's oceans, and it is floating around in space somewhere about 10 billion light years away from us. This actually makes this the largest discovery of water that has ever been found anywhere. And the reason we can see it at all is because they were studying a quasar that is 10 billion light years away. And I'm not going to say this because it's a bunch of letters and numbers. So I'm not sure if you're supposed to pronounce it, but I'll share it down here at the bottom so you can see it in text form. So astronomers were studying that, and they happened to use a bunch of scientific technology to discover that there was this giant cloud of water that was around this quasar. So yeah, and it's water vapor, not frozen water, not liquid water, water vapor. So that means it was very, very warm and in its gaseous form. So very, very interesting. The second interesting fact that I have is that Jupiter actually technically has the potential to become a small star. Jupiter is composed of hydrogen and helium, which are the exact same elements that make up our sun, but Jupiter is nowhere near large enough to have enough energy to start nuclear fusion, which is required to make a star and generate its own energy. And it's that process that made up our sun and made up any other star in the universe, and Jupiter's not big enough to achieve that on its own yet. It would have to actually be around 80 times bigger to achieve that process and become a star itself. So we don't have to worry about it becoming a star spontaneously, but the very fact that it technically could if it was much larger is very interesting. There may actually be a planet that is entirely made out of diamonds. This isn't confirmed because this planet is quite far away, so they aren't able to actually observe it in too much detail, but it is a rocky planet called 55 Cancri or Cancri E that orbits a star called 55 Cancri A or Cancri A. I'll put the writing down at the bottom as well so you can see how it's spelled, and you can look this up yourself. It is a planet that is twice the size of Earth and has a mass that is 8 times greater. And theoretically, it could have a surface made up of graphite and diamond. And it would be very, very hot because it has a very close orbit to its host star. 55 Cancri or Cancri A is 41 light years away, but it's visible to the naked eye, and it is in the constellation of Cancer. So the first planet in its solar system, as long as there aren't any other ones that are hidden, because they're always discovering new planets around stars, that one could possibly be composed of carbon in the form of diamonds. Another fact that's very interesting is if two pieces of the same type of metal touch each other in space, they will permanently bond, and that sounds very romantic, but it's more of a scientific bonding. This is actually known as cold welding, and it happens because the atoms of two pieces of metal in space don't have any way of knowing, in quotation marks, that they are actually supposed to be separate. This doesn't happen on Earth naturally because there's always air and water molecules between the two pieces of metal, and because of that, the two pieces of metal must be extremely clean because any residue on their surfaces would affect the bonding process. This can actually be done in manufacturing on Earth, and they use it quite often. So it is something that we can do through technology, but it's not something that happens naturally on Earth, but can happen naturally in space. Another interesting fact, but usually in school we are taught that there are 3 forms of matter. There's solid, liquid, and gas. And the actual case is that in space there is actually another type of matter, and in fact there's a couple of types of matter that we don't usually run into on Earth, but 99.9% of matter in the universe is actually made up of plasma. So these are loose ions and electrons that are just floating around, and it is in a supercharged state that is actually beyond gas, and it's created when matter is heated to extreme temperatures or is applied with a strong electric current. So it's something that we don't normally see on Earth. The Earth actually has a plasmasphere, which is a part of our magnetosphere, and that consists of low energy plasma, so we can't see that very often, but it helps mitigate or block the effects of solar radiation and cosmic radiation. And though we really don't see a lot of plasma on Earth, every time you don't look at the sun is made up of plasma, and all the stars in the night sky are made of plasma, and bolts of lightning are also made of plasma. And it's a much more common one that we normally run into is the one that is in neon signs. And then the last interesting space fact that I have for you guys today is that there are places called stellar nurseries where stars are born. Star formation happens in these clouds of interstellar gas and dust called nebulae. I'm sure you've heard of nebulas. These clouds are made up of hydrogen. Mostly. There's other gases in there too, but majority of it is hydrogen. And the process begins when the cloud is nudged into a spinning motion, perhaps by a shockwave from a supernova nearby, and shockwaves obviously can travel quite far in space. And these clumps begin to form, and they get hotter and hotter as they gain more mass. And when the internal temperature of these clumps of gas reach 10 million degrees Celsius, a process called nuclear fusion ignites. And this is what we were talking about before. Jupiter couldn't reach this thing because it is couldn't reach nuclear fusion because it is too small. But this process would start in these stars, and a star is created. The most famous and closest stellar nursery to Earth that we know of is the Orion Nebula, which lies about 1,500 light years away. Stars are formed sometimes from dead stars or sometimes from a supernova explosion that begins this process of creating stars. So dead stars create new stars, and eventually those stars gather up the energy around them, and a star is born. So it's all a very interesting process, and then eventually that star will age in many billions of years, and it will die as well, and the process will begin again. So yeah, new discoveries are being made all the time. I find space very, very interesting, and I hope you do too. So thank you for joining me for some more space facts, and I like to mix it in with the TTRPG stuff and other nerdy content occasionally because it is something that I'm very interested in. So thank you all for joining. Like and subscribe. I hope you're having a great day. If you're not having a great day, I hope your bad day is over with soon. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye bye!